Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I will not be very long tonight, or at least I don't intend to be. Forgive me, I apologize. Make sure everybody's being heard there. Apologies for the echo. Bear with me just a moment here. Miss Justice, thank you very much for coming out. Teresa Nelson, hello, and how are you? And Diane Selman, again, thank you. Kate, you, thank you very much. As I was saying, we're not going to be very long tonight. I'm just waiting for people to file in. I know it's a holiday weekend here in the United States, so I'm not expecting a huge crowd tonight, as people have a lot of plans. Maybe they're going to see fireworks or this, that, or the other. Hello, John Q. How are you doing? Evie, thank you very much for coming out. Renegade Center, thank you very much. So we are talking about Summer Wells, or more specifically about the Wells family tonight. New Orleans lady, thank you very much. As I said, I'm just waiting for some people to come on in and a little bit more people. You are going to want to, no matter if you agree or disagree with what I have to say today, you're going to want to stick around to the end because we're going to have a little bit of a different ending than my normal. It's going to be something that I think that this weekend is very appropriate. And I hope everybody sticks around to hear. Hello, Linda Wilson. Again, I think I said hello to you a moment ago. How are you doing? BB Diamond, thank you. I appreciate you doing so. I know I'm on a little bit earlier, but like I said, I'm not planning on to be very long tonight. Glad everybody is. Yes, Miss Justice, thank you very much. We're also going to need to put something else up. Bear with me just a moment. While I pull that up tonight. You'll be seeing this a lot tonight, folks. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, nonprofit, education purposes, education or personal use tips the balance of fair in favor of fair use. Gonna be seeing this a lot tonight, folks. So let's make sure we have it up for now. Yes, everybody, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell if you had not already done so. Thank you very much, Evie, for mentioning that. I appreciate that. Annabelle Roma, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to listen to this. Going to listen to this. What is this? When you get a moment, how many people know who Paul Harvey is? Let me just start with this. And how many people know who Paul Harvey is? Yes, Teresa. Exactly. From radio, Paul Harvey. Jazzy Jewel, thank you very much for coming out. Andy M, thank you very much. Good, 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 good. Glad I know have people who know who Paul Harvey is, because he's a very interesting person. A very interesting person that spoke in a manner that was very easy for everybody to understand. It was speaking with. When he was on the radio, he didn't speak to. He spoke with the audience that was listening, which is quite a difference of what happens today. A lot of time, people are spoken to and expected to understand and hear what somebody is saying. Pen 1010, thank you very much for coming out. I can say that sometimes I have to use that tone, the spoken to tone, instead of speaking with. BB Diamond, exactly. He's known for saying, and now for the rest of the story. We're going to listen to one of his addresses, one of his, and now for the rest of the story addresses. And I think oh, John Q, be careful now. You're trying to get the ladies all worked up. In 1965, Paul Harvey made a radio address that is called "If I Were the Devil." We're going to listen to that tonight. We're going to also listen to something else that Paul Harvey did at the end of the program. So I think it's, again, I said, I think it's worth everybody stopping and listening and hearing at the end here. Bear with me 1 second here. This is only 3 minutes and 6 seconds, I believe. So I'm going to shut up now for a moment, and I'm going to let this play. I apologize that the audio is not very loud, so if you do have earphones in, you're safe. If you might need to turn them up to hear this, but this is Paul Harvey. If I Were the Devil.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of the serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Mr. Harvey, it is with the deepest respect and admiration.
I apologize, folks. Once again, it's not a very loud recording. It is from 1965, taken off of radio, and I don't know how many times it had been re-recorded. The point of making that playing that is that the point of playing that is that what Paul Harvey said in 1965, and I chose the edition that had the words on the screen instead of just a picture of Paul Harvey, was that what he said then has almost happened exactly the way that he said it was going to happen. Now, I'm not trying to call Paul Harvey psychic or anything like that, or anything. Don't get me wrong. But what he spoke about was problems with society that he saw going to happen. Yes. And again, I'm not focusing on Sally Mae. You're exactly right. I'm not focusing on the religious aspect of this. I want you just to stop and listen to what Paul Harvey said and take a look at the Wells family. Don't worry about what it says about a nation fighting another nation or anything like that. Just focus on what he said about the family fighting a family. The symbol of Christmas being a bottle, the symbol of Easter being an egg. Every single time this year, I love listening to Paul Harvey. It's almost traditional for me. But it never ever struck me in the past till this past week that he was describing. Hello, Kathy K. Thank you very much for coming out. Yes, John Q. Exactly. What he was describing then is very true, is what he described and said. He was speaking about human nature and what it's capable of. Exactly. You're right. As a whole in society, he was. But he also spoke about how families will turn against families. The morality of a family will be gone. And that's exactly what's happening with the Wells. And probably part of the reason why we are so fixated upon what the Wells do, what the Wells say, whether it be good, bad, or ugly. Yes, Teresa, exactly. Narcissism was alive and strong. Talks about you having people having issues with substances. He talks about families turning against families. Many times we have said that there was a jealousy issue. Mimi Jean, thank you for coming out. There was a jealousy issue with Candice about what Summer and Don Wells had a bond of. Somebody was asking me late last night, very, very early this morning, on TCCT Dumpling. What was my opinion of the bond or relationship that Summer had with Robin, and how come basically I don't find it disturbing? Denelin 2, the legendary, thank you for coming out. And here it is. A child needs a bond with a mother figure. Something alienated that bond between Summer and Candice. I don't know what that is. I don't know why it happened, but it did. Is it possible that she only ever wanted to have boys? Or that she didn't want to be pregnant, or she didn't want to be pregnant at all? But yet kept getting pregnant. Summer gravitated to a woman that had strong maternal instincts and bonded with her. See something, say something. Thank you for coming out. Exactly. Or plain and simple, she didn't want a daughter. Exactly. There was something that caused a disruption in a bond that Summer should have had. We have that, what Paul Harvey was talking about, a family fighting a family against its own family. You have Don Wells, who admits that he had marital relations or relations that should have not been outside of, or with somebody outside of the marriage bonds. Again, Paul Harvey talked about that. I can't help but to think that the Wells family is a greater sign or symbolism of what is wrong with a lot of things that we see in society, and yet we just turn our back to. Teresa Nelson, exactly right. You're right, BB Diamond. You're exactly right. Candice is no angel in this. We talk a lot about Don Wells being because he's more vocal and tries to have more of a public presence and tries to be the voice for his family. But it always backfires. Every comment he says, it backfires because he when he speaks, he can't separate emotion and logic. He gets riled up and he speaks emotion. And that's where everything goes wrong. I'm not saying that he ever told the truth about anything, because honestly, we've sat here and showed many times by looking at maps of different things that he said he's done. How it's not possible. I'm pulling up a map right now just to give you an example of what we're talking about, folks. I wasn't going to go into I'm not going to go into a lot of details in the map, but you guys are going to recognize this map. Hello, Carrie. Thank you for coming out tonight. You guys are going to recognize this map. Again, not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it shows that the time frame that Don Wells gave of when and how he returned to work or from work on June 15th, 2021. It was not possible that he was at the Meadows, which is down here by this park that I'm about to show you. It's the park that the water park, the splash pad that they were all talking about visiting on that Friday. Down here is that splash pad. Bear with me 1 second here. There we go. That's a bit better. I'm sure you guys can see that better now. Yes. Wetlands. Whittified. Thank you very much for coming out. Bailey, thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate you being here. We spend a lot of time talking about this map. And the one I put together where it extends to, I have another version of it where it extends to the Meadows where Don Wells was working at the time. And the time frame just does not work out for him to have been at work at the time that Summer was being reported missing. That little icon down in the lower right here is the splash pad that I keep calling the wetlands water park that I keep calling the splash pad, because I've been around the Tri-Cities area long enough that this was originally planned to be a splash pad. And when they started making this, the plans were it was going to be a splash pad, and they changed the plans. So I kept hearing always called the splash pad, so I called it a splash pad. Paul Harvey had it right. He was talking about society as a whole and what he saw was going to be happening. We have exemplified in one family. Yes, They were actually, so if you go back and to listen to Kate, if you go back to the listen to the interview Chris McDonough had done with H, you have to listen carefully. When they start talking about plans for going to the splash pad, it's not consistently in like a one sentence leading to another. He jumps around a little bit. He says that he had to get permission from his probation and his mom in order to go to the splash pad with the Wells on Friday. They were talking about this on the 15th. Yes. And because so in the grand scheme of things of what happened, they did take the boys to the splash pad. But there was two things that interfered. And folks, forgive me for the way I'm saying this. It's literally just the two things interfered. The inconvenience that they experienced, and again, this is, forgive the phrasing I'm putting this as if it was the Wells. You have one. The inconvenience of Summer disappearing and having to deal with the police. That it disrupted their lives and their livelihood. And that Don Wells decided he was going to take off to Kentucky. We've documented pretty well, or at least I personally feel we documented pretty well. And remember, what Carrie put up here, this content discussion is all opinionated and alleged. We documented pretty well, I believe, that that Don Wells was a runner. And that on June 15th, why this map is the only map that makes sense. And that he wasn't at work. And that 5:30 p.m. is not a mistake of him staying at a wrong time or misunderstanding or looking at a watch wrong or anything like that. Is purely a chain of events and a time that he remembers having looked at a clock or seeing a time on that day. Of course, all persons are, or all person and or persons are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Of course, we do give tolerance and leniency for that. But what Paul Harvey said is as true in 1965 as it is today, and the Wells exemplify every single detail of it. Hello, Sammy Sparrow. I hope the painting turns out well. Thank you very much for coming out and listening. Forgive me, folks. I have something buzzing around me and want to make sure I take care of that. My apologies, folks. Appreciate your patience with me. I keep saying that that Hawkins County Sheriff's Department is coming out and saying recently that the statement of we hope to have a announcement soon is a Pandora's box statement, where the last thing that remained in the box was hope itself. Do not mistake what the Wells are claiming, that the FBI or the TBI or anybody other than his own probation officer had anything to do with the Wells having to return to Tennessee. TBI is going to work with the FBI. FBI is just going to go scoop their behinds up and bring them back in a paddy wagon. Old phrase, I apologize. US Marshals would be involved. They're not going to make a phone call and say, hey, you need to return to Tennessee. Miller Rickson, thank you for coming out. They're not going to give them the opportunity to say, something's up, we need to get out of Dodge and head the other way. Whether they did the actions that everybody understood or has understood them to do on lives, or it is an alleged action, it's the probation officers that's ordering them back to him so they can investigate, were they doing things legal? Because part of probation is you cannot be around phones or participate or have knowledge of a felon activity. Felonious activity, I believe is the way to word it. And if somebody tipped off the probation officer about what's been happening on the YouTube lives and what they've said and what they've alleged, the probation officer is the only one that's going to order them back to Tennessee. Whether or not Ronnie Lawson hinted at something going to be happening and worked with the probation officer is yet to be seen. Nine Lives, Mama, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Oh, take care of those. Take care of those tomatoes. Good time of year for tomato. Got to tie them up this time of year for sure. Right, because Candice is not under probation. Well, John, actually, you know what, John? I'm going to go ahead and throw you a link here if you don't, if you want to join me, or if you can join me, that's great. Bear with me a second here. There you go. Anybody else that does want to join, they're more than welcome to join. I don't have an issue with anybody joining me on a live. And John, we'll talk. We can talk about what I understand to have happened. So if like I said, if you can join me, I understand. Great. If not, I understand. It is unbelievably hot and humid here in Tennessee this weekend. So if you hear me drinking or opening a plastic bottle, I have water, ice water. So forgive me. We are hoping desperately that the weather forecast for the remainder of the month is going to be correct. Not a brag, but I know I live in the South, but 90 degrees for the beginning of July is not exactly comfortable. And then the rest of the month is supposed to be much cooler. Understand, John. I appreciate you. Appreciate you anyway. Crystal, thank you very much. And Butterfly Kisses, thank you for coming out tonight. So while in a hotel in Arkansas, because that's where they've been able to supposedly only place they could find work was all the way out in Arkansas. 10 to 12 hours away from the Tri-Cities area in Tennessee. On a live, didn't bother to mute, didn't bother to mask what he was saying. Yes, Butterfly Kisses is exactly what we're discussing. That he went back to Arkansas and he was ordered back to Tennessee. That when he was in the hotel on a stream, a live stream, YouTube live stream, not only was he offered by somebody passing outside of his hotel room to hook him up with I believe at that time was pot. But he bragged about to that person that he had hooked up with somebody else early in the day with a buddy of his for other substances. It's participating in a criminal activity. Probation would have a field day with that. Hello, HDC. That's me. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Right. Green Eyes, that's actually an interesting point. I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard Brooks talk about that. But if he had gotten fired, that would be a good reason. He's not working. He was out there with the premises that he was going to be working. So yes, in that case, also it would be another reason that probation would tell him he needs to return back to Tennessee. Yes, Denelin, you can send it. It just I have to watch my spam folder on my side, just as if I were to send you an email. You would have to take a look at your spam folder because a lot of times crossing platforms, crossing domains or platforms like that, it will automatically kick it with my email address to a spam folder. I'll have to go back and find that. Thank you very much for the tip, Green Eyes. Hello, Lorray. How are you doing tonight? Crystal, that's the whole problem. Things add up too fast. It's when you got to pump the brakes and say, stop a moment. Let's make things simple again. Occam's razor. 100% Occam's razor. The most simplest explanation must be the truth. I paraphrased it. Forgive me if it's not exactly the way it said it. It said, if you look it up, most simplest explanation must be the truth. Lorraine, did you get tired last night and fall asleep on us? Just out of curiosity. Not my channel. It was on another channel, that folks. And I'm asking her a question about. Tonight, I didn't put Summer Wells in the title of the live because I was kind of going to be all over the place with this. Green Eyes, I've never heard him say that, but if he did say that, he would definitely need to explain a little bit more. But he has his own legal issues to deal with right now. We're not going to hear from him in a long time, from my understanding. A good little while. I didn't put Summer in the title tonight. I just simply said the Wells. But ultimately, we are talking about Summer Moon Utah Wells. We are talking about Summer Moon Utah Wells. I've said one time, I've said it a few times. 6/15/2021 was a clock that never should have been started. Rogersville, Tennessee, white female, blonde hair, blue eyes, 40 pounds, 3 foot tall. Last seen possibly wearing gray pants, pink shirt, possibly barefoot. Of course, contact TBI. Contact Hawkins County Sheriff's Department if you have a credible tip. Not anything based upon what I or any other YouTuber says, because we are giving opinions of things we are based on things we researched. We here, our goal is to start a conversation, to inspire a conversation about what happened. Not to say that we know what happened. Did you rabbit hole? Thank you very much for coming out. I'm not doubting he said it. I'm just saying I've not heard it. So I'll definitely go back to looking for that. So yes. Remember, folks, it's a story of, again, how information has been coming out in the past couple weeks about Don Wells returning to Tennessee and then leaving and then returning again. If it is true that he was ordered to be back, it's coming from probation. The war on the family that Paul Harvey spoke about is from the same family. It's meant to be divisive, not just on an individual family. That we're using the Wells to understand that example. It gives the example of exactly what he talks about in a, I don't know, micro, macro, whatever the correct phrasing would be of a example. They for as much as they want to turn around and point a finger at somebody, as much as they want to turn around and point a finger at somebody, every single time a person does that, they have 4 fingers pointing back at themselves. Chris McDonough, a long time ago, beginning of the whole investigation, said there is something about 110, and again, folks, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember how exactly he worded it. There is something about 110 Ben Hill Road that keeps you locked there. It keeps you stuck there, and you can't move on from 110 Ben Hill Road. You can't move past it to get onto what happened. Which is why I say a lot of times that you need to have either rescue or recovery of Summer to understand and finally move past 110 Ben Hill Road to find out what happened to her. Which I think every single person that's with me right now, that I'm hearing my voice, wants that to be the truth. We want to know what happened for the sake of Summer having justice, having whether it's because no matter what somebody else lands up with charges with, no matter who that person is. Crystal, you're so right. But this goes beyond a drug culture issue. This goes to a person that's cheating, a person that's deceiving, a person that is trying to pull the wool over somebody else's eyes. It's the behavior of a con artist. When you realize what they're actually up to. Crystal said, of course, for everybody that's just listening, I notice these days people on math accuse people of exactly what they are doing. It's the weirdest thing. If somebody wants to hoodwink somebody else, they're going to start accusing them of what they're doing. It's the oldest con, one of the oldest cons in the book. No, I didn't do that. You did it. Why did you go and do that? Yes, Miss Justice, exactly. Praying for justice for Summer Moon, Utah Wells. Wist, you're exactly right. They're master manipulators. Projecting. That's another way of saying it. Exactly. Gaslighters. Yes, we call them gaslighting now. Yes, exactly. Yes, I know you are, but what am I? Yes, that childish phrase that we all used to play around jokingly when we were all children. I know you are, but what am I? You did that to your siblings if you had siblings so many times. Or Pee Wee Herman used to say, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Or at least that's the first time I ever remember hearing that was Pee Wee Herman. Janice Newman, I still go back and listen to what he said on the radio. Lorraine, I never saw that video, and I never was sent a link to it. I don't believe. So if you have a link for the hiker, the video about the hiker, I know you were talking about it, and hey, it was very similar to what I believe and a lot of things I say, but I want to listen to the full video and get the full understanding of what he's saying before I want to say yes or no on that. So if you would email me that link, Miss Justice or Carrie, if she's still with us. I haven't seen her for a moment. We'll drop my email address. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate that. So the Wetlands Water Park, I'm not going to say it's literally around the corner. It's probably within a half a mile of where Don Wells was working at the Meadows, where at the time that Summer had went missing. This is the Wetlands Water Park here. This is Jonesboro, which is part of the Tri-Cities area, and it pops up sometimes and it doesn't sometimes. I'm going to say it should be here. In this area. Maybe a little bit off. I was a little bit off. This is where he was working at the time, and as we saw a moment ago, the park. Is right about here. Now it's not showing me. There you go, folks. It's about 5 minutes away. About 5 minutes away. And is probably honestly why they would have chosen to go there. You were saying that you wanted to know more about the Wetlands Water Park. Is there any particular questions you had about it? Okay, Lorraine, I'll be looking for it. Early in the case, someone mentioned that they might have been supposed to go to the water park that day. Was it Hunter? Yes, it was. However, he was speaking about Friday. It wasn't the day that they were going to go, that they had already been swimming at Warriors Path Park. It was going to be on Friday. This is from where Don Wells worked. It's a 5-minute drive. So a lot of people, what I think about it is that a lot of people try to make it be that it was on the 15th, but it wasn't. That Hunter clearly says that it was for Friday. It was going to be on Friday that they were going. A lot of people, especially the Wells, try to discredit Hunter. I try not to talk about minors because they need to have their own respect and grow up, and unless the police are going to arrest the minor, then and they're obviously not going to tell us that. But to me, it seems that H always has had the most credible story in all of this. Barbie's 2 bits. I have been disgusted and uncomfortable since DW said Summer was a cute baby, but was filling out into a beautiful girl. Something to that effect. It's how he said it that felt so inappropriate. It's not only that, but it's how he described a 14-year-old. I believe she was 14. Or a 12-year-old. Somebody, it's a preteen age or early teenager year age. That was a young girl. He also described in a similar fashion. I am actually working on it, and it's been a long time coming because this is I'm talking about a live that's going to happen in the future because it's extremely sensitive. I'm struggling with it and how to put it together correctly, but I'm still working on it. There's an issue with the way that Don Wells describes certain individuals. And I was asked by somebody, and I don't remember who it was at the moment, but I was asked somebody to go into explanation of what it is, what to go into explanation about him, Don Wells. Yes, there you go, Miss Justice. It was, I think you're right with it being 12. I said 14, and I questioned myself thinking it was 12. About him inappropriately and how he inappropriately talks about certain minors. That's going to be a live that comes up in the future. Green Eyes, I think that if anything about the order of events or what happened in that day, minus the 2-hour window that, remember that H is under orders by TBI, FBI, not to talk about a 2-hour window of events that happened on the 15th. Beyond that 2-hour window, I think that H is given the most information that anybody else will about a chain of events that has happened. The chronology of where they went, in what order. And before that, he has spoken the most truth, or what he is allowed to tell, of what happened on the 15th. It gets tricky because, again, he has that 2-hour window that he's not allowed to talk about. Miss Justice, yes, I've heard rumors about that. I don't involve myself into anything like that, so I don't know anything beyond that. It's a rumor that named Summer after a adult film artist. I don't want to call it an actress. It's an artist, I guess. I don't know what else to call that. But yeah, that's kind of disgusting to me. Green Eyes, I actually think we've kind of changed positions a bit there then. Because originally, with how much Don Wells was speaking and how much he kept trying to be the voice and trying to twist and turn and make things out to be something other than they were, I originally thought it was Don. But the more time that it's gone by, I believe this is all about Candice. And that what happened this summer could have been plotted by Candice. Let's not forget that Candice actually has a bad temper. A bad temper. Katarzyna Rostova, thank you very much. I share your opinion. And I actually go back as far as to say that when High Roller, thank you very much for coming out as well. I say that, early on in the investigation when Candice, before Dr. Phil, before the behavior room, when TBI wanted her to come back in for a third interview, that she refused. Lawyered up, whatever the case may be, she would not comply. She would not go back in for a third interview because they were focusing on Candice. They were starting to narrow in on Candice then. Again, that is my opinion. And hello, Summer. Where's Summer? 1-800-TBI. Fine. Thank you for coming out tonight. But was it just Don? That's the question. Was it just Don? And as had been mentioned before, the whole lifestyle of with the men being above the ladies and plural marriages, there's so many possibilities. Absolutely. I was hinting at this last night, again, very, very early this morning on Dumpling's channel, about how the family did not like traditional beauty, or what society had deemed as beautiful for women. And they celebrated androgyny. And they still celebrate androgyny. But it fits in exactly with what Wilted Faded here is saying. They did everything to eliminate and to demean, put down, whatever, to destroy somebody that would have been viewed as being beautiful in society. Again, as Carrie said, this is content is discussion and opinionated. Of course, alleged. Yes, John Q. Yes, yes. Summer would be 7. She would have been turned. I don't remember her exact date of birth, but it would have been. I want to say February was her birthday. Of course, I said that if I'm wrong. I know there are about 5 to 10 different people that are going to pop up her correct date of birth in just a moment here. But yes, she would be 7 now. Thank you, Butterfly Kisses. February 4th. Yeah. Yeah. Twilla and Dave actually have had always had the stance of, well, we'd love to go back and search again. Not that you love to go to searching for a missing person, but out of their own goodness and their own pocket, because they never ask for money, to have their organization come back to the Tri-Cities area and search again. Yes. There's a lot of people that want Summer found, except for 2 adults. And those 2 adults should be the number one outspoken persons trying to rally people for help to search for Summer Wells. High Roller, I don't think it's the issue of Hawkins County does or doesn't want. It's that the Wells will not ask. You have Chris McDonough, organization that he's associated with, that he said that he will go ahead and advocate for them to come out and be involved. But he'll end it at him advocating if their issue is Chris McDonough or Chris McDonough's wife. They'll end it at they'll end their involvement at advocating for them to come out and help. But they refuse to ask for help. The same thing goes, and forgive me, I know who Twala and Dave, and I'm probably saying her name wrong, and Dave, but I can't remember the organization's name off the top of my head. So somebody again is going to pop it up in the chat in just a moment. I appreciate them doing so, but it's the same thing. Because the Wells will not ask for help, because they are hard stance against anybody helping EquiSearch, that's it. In this case, at this point, even though they say it's not a cold case, I would think that you would have the parents asking for help. John Q, you were talking about the conversation with Fred Hill in jail when he was talking to Ziggy? I have no problem mentioning Ziggy's name. She's a friend of the channel, just like you are. To be honest, has he made a comment about that? Because I've not heard it, or I've ignored it, to be honest. It could be one or the other. It's like when Don Wells went on a creator that I don't mention's channel the other night. I believe it was Thursday night. It turned out to be nothing but a shit show. Excuse my language, but it turned out to be nothing but a shit show because it was nothing but an argument of accusations. And that's half the time what you get out of Don Wells anymore. Right. High roller. Right. But that's the problem. The parents aren't going to ask for help. Okay. Thank you, Crystal. Like I said, I hadn't heard. I can only take, I'll be honest, I can only take Don Wells in bits and pieces. I've got to, it infuriates me half the time he speaks and half the time Candice speaks for that fact as well. So I have to pause and walk away for a moment and come back and to be able to stomach what they say. High roller, we started off talking about Paul Harvey and what he said in 1965. Why I'm not an advocate for waterboarding, because Geneva Convention says you can't. Not getting into politics, just making a statement that's where it comes from. Paul Harvey was saying that society will reward emotions over logic. And that's exactly what you have when with the Wells. Yes, Teresa, they don't want her found. At least I personally believe that they don't want her found. I've gone ahead and pinned at the top of the chat the link for StreamYard. Anybody is welcome to come up and join me and talk with me, and instead of typing if they wish. I'm not going to be too much longer as it's going to be getting dark. And while we did have some fireworks going on last night, I believe and I'm hearing some more. I don't know if it's local or whatnot. But this area, my area, tends to celebrate for a week straight 4th of July, starting with the weekend before and goes through the weekend after. So it's part of the reason why I came on a little bit earlier than at the time I did tonight, because I wanted to try to be done before it gets too late and people start with fireworks and hearing all that noise in the background because I have windows open. So again, if anybody wants to join me, you're welcome to do so. Is what I'm getting to all the end of that. John Q. I kind of agree. I think he did it for attention. I'm not going to say he played Ziggy because 99% of the creators, in my opinion, that were complaining and balking and B and C, if you know what that means, 80s and 90s phrase, at what Ziggy did, would have done the same thing at the drop of a pin. Again, listening to Paul Harvey at the top of the show as we did, the promise of ratings, and I'll go ahead and extend it further. It's not just television. It's the promise of popularity when it comes to social media. In 1965, they would have no clue about social media and what it is today. Carrie Lawson, I agree. He did think she would put it out there. And I'm going to be very cautious about that because, again, I'm going to say this way: the 99% of the creators that were B and C moaning over what Ziggy did, and turn around and call the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department, complaining to them about what she did, would have done the exact same thing. Folks, just a reminder, if you're new to my channel, hadn't mentioned this in a while. If you're new to my channel, please hit that like, subscribe button, notification bell. I'm very close to being over 1,000 subscribers. Being over 1,000 subscribers is not for me to be monetize my channel In fact, it's the complete opposite of what I want to do. I will not monetize my channel. That being a part of 1,000 subscribers is you being part of Summer's army, being a voice, wanting to know what happened to Summer. It also encourages me that you are liking how I present things and the way I present the information that I research or that is going on in the Summer Wells case. I have no interest in making a penny. I have no interest in making a penny off of a missing kid. That's why I say I will never monetize. And I do not, please do not think that that is to start any sort of trouble or controversy or anything else with another kid, with another creator. I think that's on each and every creator's own decision to do so. I just choose not to. Which, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, don't worry. I have no interest of ever hitting that. And honestly, the reason I don't, and I put it out there publicly, is everything to do with my own job, my 9 to 5. My 9 to 5 does not care that I'm on YouTube and I talk about the missing kids. It just gets a little icky with legal issues within my job that they've never made a decision on. They don't care if I come on and talk on YouTube. They or create or be part of somebody else's channel. Yeah, apparently I've lost a couple today, but oh well. Not going to be upset about it. If somebody doesn't like what I'm saying, they have every single reason to go ahead and unsubscribe. I'm not going to go ahead and be offended by it. John Q, you say I say that because between the time he told Z about where Summer is allegedly today regarding her being in a cave underwater in a dam park for the last 2 years, and he comes out now about it, it's insane. I've said it for 2 years. I've said it for 2 years that I personally believe that Summer's in the mountains, in a cave, either a miner's entrance or an old bear cave or a natural cave that exists in the mountains. And I believe there's running water by that. No, I did never, ever mean Laurel Run Park. That's the one place I was clear about that it wasn't. Said it for 2 years. Fred Hill says it and gives a name of somebody that passed away. And it looks like it's brand new information. did they ever find out who the child was found in Virginia yet? I believe that you're talking about the little boy that was found in a barrel in the woods. Where Summer went ahead to TV behind. Is that correct? You're talking about a little boy that was found in a barrel in the woods? Right. Teresa, exactly. It was a little boy. I'd never heard a name, but from my understanding, he was older than Summer or had been missing older than Summer, longer than Summer. Yeah, one of the very early statements on what I don't remember the exact details of that, and I'd have to go back and research that. But one of the very early the details of that is they actually were saying this was not related to summer wells around this area. That it's a tragedy that they found a trash barrel, a trash can, whatever you wish to refer to it as. Um, that they had found a little boy stuffed into in the middle of the woods. I believe they did say it was a little boy. No, they have not named the child. He did, but that was because he owed him money from working. Wist, are you familiar with where the Redmonds live on Ben Hill Road? Right. So BB Diamond. I apologize. I said BB Diamond. I was looking at your name. I'm looking for the comment here. It was about the little boy. Yes. Okay. So BB Diamond, I caught your attention here, but yet this comment caught my attention. But yes, it was Kentucky that he went to the weekend after Don Wells went to Kentucky the weekend after Summer went missing. That's one of the two things that interrupted that Friday trip. Again, excuse the way I phrase it. I don't mean this, but I'm putting it at the perspective of the Wells and how they would have seen this. It was one of two, the one of two trips, or one of two playing pieces of pieces that were planned that would have interfered with them happening. The trip to the Wetlands Water Park, Don Wells leaving state. Trash can in the park, the body had been there for a time. Yes, exactly. That is Teresa, that Nelson. That's exactly what the news had reported on, I believe it was WJHL, WCYB. WCYB tends to cover more of Virginia. So it's probably the WCYB if somebody wanted to research that. All right, folks, it's getting dark here. It's 10 after 9 here. Traditionally, I always say it's 10 after 9, or this time of night, it's 10 after 9. And do you know where your kids are? A lot of towns are having fireworks displays tonight and things like that. When it gets to 10 o'clock, just remember, do you know where your kids are? If you do, make sure they know how important they are to you tonight. I said earlier in the live that we're going to end things a little bit differently tonight. It being the 4th of July weekend, I think this is really, really important to hear. Whether you're from the United States or you're not from the United States. 4th of July and the signing of the Declaration of Independence monumental event that happened for the United States to become the United States. There are other happenings that are surrounding that as well that we're not going to get into. That's a whole entire history lesson. I'm going to play for you a little video. It's going to be about 11 and a half minutes long, and I'm going to play the whole entire thing of why the flag of the United States and the Star Spangled Banner are so important. I feel it's appropriate for this being the 4th of July weekend. And I wanted to go ahead and share that if you never heard this before. Again, this is done by Paul Harvey. Kind of a running theme there tonight, Paul Harvey. I promise you that this is will be it's not going to be extremely loud, but this will be louder than the previous video that we watched. Okay, good. It's full screened. Before I do play, I am going to be ending with this playing video. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the 4th of July weekend. Be happy, be safe, be sober. Because I want to see everybody here safe next time I go live.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the national anthem. It is our song as an American. We go, however, to a ball game. We stand in our church services and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds and our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. He said, don't worry about it. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule. Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen. And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, "Men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch." As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset, suddenly the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, "Tell us where the flag is. What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us." 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling, every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, "It's still up. It's not down." The admiral came and he said, "Your people are insane." He said, "What's the matter with them?" He said, "Don't they understand this is an impossible situation?" Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees. The admiral said, "We have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down." He said, "We don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that." But he said, "Now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point." Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful. All that he could hear was the men down below praying. The prayer, "God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it." Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds. The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when it had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. Or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?" The debt was demanded. The price, it was paid.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets spread clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Text